Hello, and welcome back to the Thought Cloud podcast. Our goal with this conversation is to tell the story of inspiring students to inspire other students. Our guest today is Grace Rao. Grace is at the University of New Hampshire, where she is studying environmental conservation and sustainability. She's going to dig into that. She's going to dig into everything that she's been able to do at campus, what's made her successful, what she's learned, and all the things that have made her who she is today and who she hopes to become. So, Grace, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Absolutely. I'm super excited too. I'm glad we got this set up. So, let's talk about your major. Let's talk about what you're studying. How did you decide on it? First of all, what's the goal of this field? What as somebody who's going in to study environmental conservation and sustainability, what does that mean to somebody who has no idea?
I would say it's just ensuring that our surroundings and our environment is sustained and our interactions are sustainable for the people and the planet. Um, in my major, especially, there's a whole realm of studies. I mean, you could do forest ecology, and that would fall under like you could take courses in that in my major. Um, it's half field work and half sustainability. So looking at sustainable businesses, practices, leadership. And then from there, you can kind of decide what path you want to take, which is super fun.
So, is each person required a certain? I'm sure there's a prerequisite, right? Like, what's the prerequisite program look like? What does everyone get a flavor of before they have to decide that thing?
Yeah. I mean, well, for my major, I can pick and choose, but I have a pool of certain courses that I can pick from. I've taken field methods, which is, it's very complicated, but I actually called it Intro to Boy Scouts. So learning how to use a compass and all that stuff. I've also taken forest ecology, so measuring the DBH of trees and learning about
DBH
forest
of
suppression.
what's the DBH?
It's the diameter breast height, so basically like the size of a tree.
The size of a
Um,
tree. Okay.
yeah, so some people are taking field dendrology, where you're studying all the species of plants and trees. So they'll go out in the forest. We have our own forest on campus.
Wow.
Um, and they'll just like know all the names of the species, which I think is really cool. Um, and then, for example, the course I'm taking right now is um, sustainability leadership. So that's actually a capstone course. But we're really looking into how to be a leadership in the realm of sustainability. So right now we're looking at like SDGs, like sustainability development goals, and kind of going from there. But it's very diverse and open for a lot of opportunities, depending on what's your kind of niche. That's what I was saying growing up. I wouldn't say growing up, I guess at UNH, was my first year here. I was always telling people, like, trying to figure out my niche, like, what I like and what I don't like. And with my major, I think you can really figure that out based on the course selection that you have. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So why did you go into UNH wanting to study this?
Yes. I've known what I want to do since eighth grade. Um, it was my eighth grade capstone project, and I did it on climate change, global warming, in China. And I made a huge styrofoam ball and got like those cocktail umbrella sticks and put them in, and then I torched them, so it was like that, like, represented the ozone. It was this whole thing, but I was obsessed with it, obsessed with the smog in China. Looking back, I don't know why I thought that was so cool. I think I was more passionate about, like, why is this going on. And in high school, I think that really set me up for success. I know some high schools don't offer environmental courses, but I took like honors environmental science and then honors marine bio. And I was the one to bring my wetsuit to class for marine bio. We take a trip to the beach once a week, and I would be the one to bring the wetsuit, go in with the skimmer, like the net. Um, yeah, a lot of fun. And that's what I definitely wanted to study. So looking at schools, I was only looking at their environmental programs. Of course, I was keeping my options open, but I was like, I don't see myself in nursing or,
Right.
biotech or, any of that stuff. So
Right.
UNH was definitely, they're well known. I mean, they have the Sustainability Institute, which I'm a huge
Very
fan
well
of.
known. Yeah,
Yeah.
very well known. No, they're doing wonderful
Yeah.
things. And the more I learn about it, the more I realize how much they're doing, which is actually really
Yeah.
neat. So, well, back up for a second there. You were going to the beach once a week in high school. That's pretty cool for a
Yeah.
lot of people, I would say. Where did
Yeah.
you go to high school?
I went to Greenwich High School in Connecticut. So we have the Long Island Sound.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Very cool. Very
Yeah.
nice. Well, I didn't have a beach near me in high school. I think Lake Tahoe. Actually, I take that back. But still, not the ocean. No marine bio classes. Very cool though. So you've been interested in this space forever. You've
Right.
had a great upbringing. Like you said, middle school you were able to do reports on it. Then high school you were able to dig into it further. UNH you're digging into it even more. Now you're setting goals for this field, which is really impressive. What are you most curious about now? You talked a little bit about the ozone. You talked a little bit about smog. You talked a little bit about marine bio. Now you are able to kind of dig in and choose. They've got so much for you to offer. Where are you most curious?
Yeah. I would say it's a two-part answer. Outside of what I want to do in the future, and if I had all the time in the world, I would also study renewable energy. And if I had the brains, and I'm sure maybe if I maybe took a few courses, I mean, I have taken a few courses, but I'm really interested in the development of the renewable energy technology. I know we've had so many technological advances this decade in numerous things, and I think that given the time frame that we're at with climate change and climate mitigation, I'm curious just to sit back and watch and just see like what these engineers do. Like it's super impressive. um, and I think also that will relieve some stress on my end as why I'm going into this field. um,
Absolutely.
yeah. And then in regards to what I'm looking to do, I'm definitely interested in greenhouse gas accounting, carbon footprinting, or ESG consulting. um, I'm more of the type of person who, if you give me a problem, I love to like pick it apart and be very specific and detailed on certain things and figure out how to assist them and help them, and of course in my field have a better planet for their business and the people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to dig into it more. What do you think the future of this field looks like? Like, where do you see it going? Obviously, there's improvements that are going to be made around, you know, just like you said, the environmental engineers, these guys in the renewable energy sector as well. There's a lot going on there. What do you see? I mean, more from like a public sentiment perspective and how people are putting things into place. How do you see that coming to fruition in the future? What does that future look like for people?
I am super happy to be a part of it because I think it's a grow. I've seen it grow since I was a freshman in college. So I think I'm kind of really going into it at a very good time. I think it's going to be the next big thing in regards to jobs and everything. Um, and regarding the, I guess, tech side of it, I'm very curious to know how AI is going to play a role in it, and I'm kind of scared about that. Um,
What
I
are you
don't know.
scared about?
I think I don't know. I think humans um, can be very creative and very collaborative if they put their minds to it. And having kind of AI intelligence take over, I'm worried um, it may lack some human love and perspectives versus whatever it's going to do.
Mhm.
I haven't done much research on it, but I'm wondering, if AI is going to start making their own projections versus having people in the field doing data and comparing it to like historical things. Um, but everything
No,
happens for a
yeah.
reason, so
No, I think that's
could
an
be.
interesting point. Yeah, because you could look at it from the one perspective, which is okay. Well, humans, we're prone to error, right? We're prone to error in a lot of different ways. We could make wrong assumptions about things, or we could, um, I don't know, plug in the wrong data, and we may not be able to work as quickly if we need to move quick on something. Those are all realistic concerns.
Right.
In the biotech space, I think there's a similar concern about AI when they're talking about manufacturing drugs and coming up with new solutions to treat different diseases. Like, what happens if we are training a model on the wrong data set, and now
Right.
it's over projecting certain things, and that's causing adverse effects? How are we going to put these safeguards in place? And
Yeah.
while it can help, obviously there need to be some rails, some guardrails that just so you don't implement something, and now you're messing with the ozone at the end of the day. You
Yeah.
don't want to overestimate that, or underestimate that rather. But you're right. I think there's a lot to be thought of there for sure, for sure, for sure.
Definitely.
One thing too, this is interesting side of it as well. So there's a good controversy on the space, right? There's people that are like, "What are you talking about?" And then there's people like, "What do you mean? What am I talking about?" So you
Yeah.
get both angles of it, and I'm curious. I think with all issues, everything needs to be kind of looked at from both sides so that the best path can be brought forward. Obviously,
That's
we're living in a world where we affect it. How do you how do you go about navigating those conversations and making sure that at the end of the day, both people can walk away and say, "Hmm, okay, we've got a better understanding of what we thought and now what we actually know."
right. Um, I think biggest takeaway I've had, especially within my major and the whole idea of sustainability, is for people who are studying this, we always answer kind of with, well, it depends. There's always a pro and there's always a con. I always like to think of offshore wind as an example. Um, Growing up, going to Nantucket a lot, there's been a lot of issues with the locals despising the offshore wind projects that are happening and that they can see. My professor last year, we were having a conversation about it, and I told him, I was like, well, when I was younger and I would drive up to the Cape, I would point out the wind turbines, be like, oh my God, mom, like, look, like, this is awesome. Versus other people, they're like, oh my God, like, that's blocking my sight of view. Like, that's interrupting with, the lay of the land. Um, but I think it's important to tell people who are maybe confused or have a potential one sided opinion is that one, it depends. And two, we're at this timeline where we can't really take our time to figure out a solution that's going to, I guess, make everybody happy. Um,
Mhm.
so if I were to be having a conversation with somebody who didn't like offshore wind, um, I would kind of obviously give them some facts and whatnot. But, would you rather see, a coal plant or something like that in your area, or something that has less of an environmental impact? Coal has obviously, I know coal plants are kind of shutting down, but maybe a fossil fuel plant, natural gas plant, um, it has its emissions. Um, but with offshore wind, there's a lot of technology that's going into it. For example, the wind turbines, they're painting like one of the blades black, and that helps with birds navigating, like not to hit it. Um, and I think they're building new barriers, I think, could be wrong, um, underwater around it to help assist with not messing up the echolocation of the whales, I think they are, and maybe
Mhm.
dolphins.
Yeah.
Um, But I think it's important to look at the pros and cons, and again, sustainability, making sure that the planet and the people are sustained for even future generations, right? So taking that into consideration, um, regarding a project that may have some controversies. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you said it best. Like, just having an open discussion about the consequences of what something could look like, right? Like, okay, we're going to do this. This is what could happen. This is what we could do to mitigate it. These are the alternatives. This is what would happen otherwise. And yeah, just I've had conversations like that in the past with people about just anything under the sun, really, where it's like before you can even logically look at consequences, you've got each other barking at, you're barking at each other and you're like, well, this got
Right.
nowhere. So I like
Yeah.
that. That's a good level-headed approach. Really cool. Really cool. Some of the work that you've done is, well, you've done a lot of work on campus, but let's talk about Scrap. I want to know more about Scrap. How'd you get involved? What is it for the people that don't know? Talk to us about it.
Yeah. So scrap, I have some other previous history on that kind of falls into the B Impact Clinic.
Let's
But
start there
just,
then. Yeah, let's start B Impact Clinic.
yeah. So I just actually gave this little pitch to my boss who I just met. He works at Scrap, the CEO. He's from the UK. We just got lunch yesterday. So I gave him, he was like, well, tell me about yourself. I was like, oh, I was like, well, here's actually how I found you guys. Um, my first year when I transferred here, sophomore, um, I was kind of just getting used to post ish COVID um, college schedule and getting used to the courses. And I set up a informational interview with a woman who connected me to her, and she just told me about all of the clubs and organizations that she was a part of. And this is my spring of 2022. Yes, 2022. Um, and immediately after that, I was like, I think I learned more about my major in 10 minutes than I did maybe sitting in like 2 weeks worth of class.
Wow.
So after that, I went and tore apart the UNH site, looking at every single opportunity. I was like, all right, I joined, well, I applied for the B Impact Clinic. Um, and then I joined, I'm no longer in it just because wasn't my thing, but I gave it a shot. It was Chi Sigma Pi. It was a National Honor Society of Natural Resources and Forestry. Um, but by then, I was kind of dabbling into more of the business side of my major. So that's where I found the B Impact Clinic, and I was accepted into the program. Um, and basically, we do for those who don't know, the B Lab, or if you have a product and you have like the little circle on it says B, it's B Corp certified. So we look at a company's, they have like 5 pillars. So I think it's environment, governance, customers, and there's like 2 more. But basically, we go through the B Impact Assessment, which is like 160 plus questions that really dives into the company's values, what they do, how they treat their employees, the environment, their customers, etc. Um, and we got to rank which companies we wanted to work with in the beginning of the semester. Um, I picked, I think Scrap was like my second one. Again, I was the only environmental major in the course. Everyone was a Paul student majoring in like business analytics and all this stuff. So at first I was literally like, this is not my place. I was like, they know all of the business terms. I was like, no idea what's going on. Um, but I definitely think I needed that to kind of set me up for, I guess, where I am now. I think it was a huge help. So I got with Scrap. And at first, of course, they're partially, in the environmental sector. So I was like, oh, I can help them with that. But then when we dived into it, I was like, oh, they have that fully covered. So I had to kind of spread my wings and do other stuff with them. But basically, Scrap is a tech company. They use data to assist in recycling amongst municipalities, communities, universities, individuals, um, to help people recycle right and track it properly. Scrap has multiple programs. We have just the general app. That's why it's called Scrap, where you can scan a barcode on, for example, we just did Pete and Jerry's. Scan the barcode and it'll tell you how to recycle it based on your local regulations. And partnering with Pete and Jerry's, which is our other brand verified program, that company now can track the recyclability rate of their products and
Hmm.
ensure like full transparent communication with their customers. Um, And then we also have separation stations or waste sorting equipment, where we offer, for example, we have the national grid, and we have these bins set up and a huge tablet, and we kind of make their own customizable wiki for them. So, say, for example, you have this type of eco biodegradable cups that you have in your lunchroom, right? We'll put that into the system. So people, there's no barcode on it, but you can click on it through the tablet and sort it properly, again, based on that company's locational regulations,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool. And yeah, so did the B Impact Clinic with them, helped them get a passing score. So they submitted their application and come full circle this year. They
And
just
that
submitted.
that passing score so they can become B Corp certified, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So I personally love B Corp certified companies. I've grown fond of them. I think for me, the biggest takeaway with them is, again, being a senior and going into the real world and figuring out, what companies I would want to work for. They put their employees, I wouldn't say first, but equal. They care about, their time, their free time, um, their pay. They're very transparent, I've noticed. And it's not, I wouldn't say a strict and, um, yeah, like a strict environment where you don't feel like you could express yourself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I really like that. And Scrap already seems like it. So that's why they're going to definitely be certified. I know they just went through the whole process. Um, so, anyway, so
Do you think you're going to be working for Scrap after college?
um, potentially, I did have a discussion with my boss regarding that. Um, but I can dive into that later because there's a few logistics as to why I'm on the fence about it.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so the B Impact Clinic was um, a part of the Sustainability Institute that they offer. And their sister program, the Carbon Clinic, was
Which you
something
were
that
also
I
a
was,
part of. Yeah, you were also
yes,
part of Carbon Clinic. Yeah.
yes. So after last fall, the B Impact Clinic, I loved it, but I was like, I'm kind of a science nerd. I was like, I got to dabble in something like that. So I applied for that one and loved it. Um, Alongside that, I got my carbon footprint certification as well. Um,
What does that mean?
Truthfully, I got it just so I can better understand the carbon clinic. Little did I know, everyone who was on that webinar for all of those X amount of class trainings, I saw a few people on Zoom consistently. They're like sustainability coordinators of a company and they're trying to track their company's footprint better. So that's why they joined the course and got the certification, which is kind
Right.
of cool. So I'm like, now I feel more confident going into that field potentially. Say I had my own company, I kind of took a course on it
Right.
um, while alongside being in the carbon clinic. So with that, we worked with same kind of scenario. You're listing the top companies you would want to work for. So they partner with UNH. Say there's 5 of them. You list your top in a certain order. So I got Prime Buckles, which is a investment consulting firm based actually in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and they have an office in Boston. So I learned a lot about doing a footprint with multiple locations, which is really cool. We got to compare the footprint of Boston versus Portsmouth. Um, I really loved doing our preliminary results, and we went on site to talk to them about their current footprint, what we're seeing, and all of them, I mean, we were in a huge conference room. They were all super engaged. They were like, as soon as we finished, they were like, okay, like, what can we do now? They're like, well, we're going to go look at this site and maybe we'll get like on site solar. And it was awesome to know that not just the two people who we were speaking with and having consistent meetings with, that the rest of the team and their company was as well as invested into it. So that was awesome.
Absolutely. What
And
really quickly, what goes into carbon accounting? Like, if you're to say random business, I'm walking up to you, let's account your carbon, right? Let's
Yeah.
make sure we know what's happening here. How do you start? I mean, trash that's thrown in the wrong spot or too much paper used, do you get that granular with it? Or is it
I
electricity?
like to get very granular.
You like to get
I actually
granular.
have an issue with it because we just had a meeting because I'm in the carbon clinic again this year, and I was like, oh, like any chance like we can get this kind of data. Um, so basically, or I guess well specifically with the carbon clinic, we use a platform called SciMap, which is the Sustainability Indicator Management and Analysis platform, which is insanely intense. And Ali Leach, one of the leaders, helped create the whole platform. So it's UNH made, which is really cool.
Right.
So essentially, I'll use like a picture like a small company for an example. Say they're based in Portsmouth, right? There's three scopes of it. So there's scope one, scope two, and three. Scope one are basically I would look at your on-site stationary sources. So do you use natural gas, for example, right? And then I would get those bills, and based on SciMap and how they calculate it, maybe I would need it in dollar amount or whatever metric it is. Scope two, there's a few of them, but a more common one would be um, like electricity. So I would look at their electricity bills, and if it's in megawatts, kilowatts, whatever it may be. Renewable energy would I think would fall into that category as well. And then scope three would be everything else. And scope three is my favorite one because it's one that currently isn't required to be reported. Scope one and two are, but scope three tends to be 10 times more than scope one and two. For example, we're looking at commuting, business travel, food, paper, purchase goods and services. Um,
You're
there's a
getting
lot.
deep in there. Yeah,
There's
you're getting
15,
deep.
15 categories within scope three.
Only 15? What do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it would be awesome to work with a company that, or I guess consult a company that had all the data for 15. Um,
Do
but
they
what we
want to work towards that getting that 15? Once they get the bug, are they like, okay, maybe we want to get all 15?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think, and one of my, I guess, because I'm such as like a solution type person. At the end of the clinic, I wanted to almost send them like a whole proposal of like and a little action plan for them, like how going into the next like fiscal year, how maybe you guys can start tracking these. So come the next year when you do your next footprint, it'll be easier to input the data if it's tracked a certain way for X, Y, and Z categories.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. So, question for you, because this is, that it's a lot of new stuff for me too.
yeah,
Um, when I'm looking at, say, the medical field, a company that wants to get something FDA approved, they would want to do that because that allows them access into new markets with higher margins, etc. Whereas otherwise they may not be able to enter some things, and they're kind of playing on the outskirts, or different standards of like ISO standards, for example. ISO standards is a way to like keep track of how well your business is organized. It's an organization metric, right? So how well do you document, control, and quality control all these different things. So that would allow them to play with bigger players and say, hey, we're able to manufacture medical grade equipment, or we're able to manage people at this high specificity of quality. As far as it goes with becoming B Corp certified and going into something like Scope 3, there's upfront cost that goes into that, obviously. What are they recouping on the back end there? What's the incentive there for them to want to get into that? Other than obviously the hey, we want to take care of the environment.
right, right. Um, I would say from what I've experienced thus far, I think it would come down to more of the logistical side. Is it feasible for the company now? Like sometimes with a lot of environmental tracking and progress, that's like a sector of a certain company. If other stuff is going on, it may not be their number one priority.
Mhm.
which I wouldn't say I don't blame them for, but if that's not the main focus of the company and what their product or service is, and say there's a crash in the market or something, like I totally get that. Like it happens. So I think that's a big part of it. Having people dedicated to it. I know Prime Buckles kind of made their like own little green team, so their little side work was doing that. So I think it's just really building the initiative of it and kind of having a strong um, platform for diving more into environmental awareness within the business.
Yeah.
Um,
And you said Buckles was in, they do investments, correct?
Correct.
So did they have an ESG portfolio maybe?
Yeah, so they actually, my fellowship this summer, I was with Scrap, but another fellow, there's two girls, they worked with Prime Buckles, and they, 99% sure this is correct, they made a kind of like a grading portfolio ish. So every time a new investor would come in, they would go through a whole checklist of questions with, I don't know if it was like an application or maybe with the person himself. And they would get a grade based on, and I think it would be looking at ESG initiatives and
Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah,
Gotcha.
which is
Gotcha.
pretty cool.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I mean, I'm just thinking from a company perspective, like if you're investing people's money in something because of the value proposition that you're seeing and you don't have that internally, it may seem a little bit
Right.
contradictory. So yeah, no, I absolutely see that. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, very nice. So Carbon Clinic, the Impact Clinic, Scrap, all of these things that you've been able to do. It's been a lot. It's been so much. And I guess, like you said, you're figuring out the exact route that you want to take. There's still so much you can learn.
Right.
Um, what I guess what's your next step here? This is your last year.
Um, Next step would be, I mean, to be brutally honest, I'm just reviewing my resume, touching it up, and gonna just send it and apply to a ton of stuff. Um, I'm hoping to network with some people who were in the Sustainability Institute or either my major who graduated from UNH.
Hmm.
Set up some times to chat with them, um, as well as maybe some informational interviews with companies that I'd be interested in. Um, Other than that, I'm also looking at like apartments in Boston. So I'm trying to get my ducks in line early and then get something set and then actually have the fun part of like relocating and all that stuff. So
I love it. So Boston's the spot for you.
yes.
That'll be cool.
I
I've
mean,
never been to
I'm trying
Boston.
to keep my options open, but I've been looking at that. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Well, I've heard great things. I've never been. I think I get to go sometime next year.
Yeah.
But
I definitely
yeah.
recommend it.
Well, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it for sure. But wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So bright, bright path ahead. Obviously, you've been able to dig into so much. Obviously, you're passionate. Listening to you talk is great. I've learned a lot just by kind of hearing about all of it. I've got so many questions that I'm sure I could still ask. Um, but one thing I want to touch on, which I think is really unique and really valuable point too, is you're a first generation college student. So tell us about that. Tell us about your upbringing. I think you just have such a unique story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was adopted from Kazakhstan in 2003. I was only 10, 11 months old. So no, I don't know the language or anything. Um, Grew up in upstate New York. And then in the third, fourth grade, I moved to Greenwich, Connecticut. My mom wanted to move there for the school system, which thank God. The school system's insane. It's equivalent, honestly, to UNH. It's a very easy transition. Very hard school too, as well. So that's what I loved about it. So yeah, I don't think I didn't feel much different than other people. I think when it really set in was my freshman year of high school. There's a program called AVID, which stands for Advanced via Individual Determination. And it's a college readiness, college prep class. You're with the same 20 kids from freshman year to senior year of high school, and same teacher. So we became family by the end of the year, senior year. Um, and we did numerous college visits, um, resume reviews. We had like tutoring help. It was insane. They partnered with Simply Smiles, which is a nonprofit that works with Native Americans and also some kids in Oaxaca, Mexico. But I ended up getting accepted to that, and I went with some avid students and South Dakota for 10 days and lived on a reservation. It was awesome.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so they're also, as well, everyone in Avid is first generation minority, low income college student. I mean, to be college student.
To be college.
Um, yeah, so it was awesome growing with them, and I love seeing where they're at now. A lot of people wouldn't, I definitely would not be where I'm at today without Avid. Um,
Yeah, that was my next question because I've spoken to a lot of first generation college students, and I've seen all sorts of different paths, and sometimes it's tough. Actually, more often than not, it's really tough. You know, you're the first person trying to figure it out. I think
right,
about myself. I had an older brother, and he went to college before me, and he, showed me some of the ropes, I guess you can say, but it was still difficult. I mean, it wasn't like I was foreign to the idea, but it was still difficult. But getting into it, being the first person in your family, that's crazy. I mean, that's got to be a lot. You think Avid, I think you kind of said it, but how much did Avid really prepare you for that transition?
yeah, I think. Um, well, also I think as well, like my family, my upbringing, they've always been super pushing towards me towards whatever passion I have, which is I think made me such a people's person and really into my future career ever since I was literally a freshman in high school. And my mom and my dad have always been very like, oh, I can't wait to see like what you're gonna like, very, very supportive. So that obviously motivated me a ton. Um, and then with Avid interconnecting with that, um, it just taught me just importantly, like I guess the networking aspect of it. And I guess I don't really know any better. I've never had a situation or I've spent X amount of years with somebody who has gone to school and been successful, whatever it may be. So I just kind of know what I know. And with Avid, just taught me to take any opportunity you have, network, and if you really want it, you can get it kind of
Yeah,
shebang.
absolutely.
So yeah, and that's just how I roll. Yeah.
I love it. No, I love it. You got to be a go-getter.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, good for you. I mean, that's just, again, super cool, super unique too. You said you were how many months? 11 months?
10, 11. Yeah.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. 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 Well, it's been awesome to see and learn more about what you've been doing. And again, like the future just looks bright.
Thank
So
you.
I'm excited to see what the next couple of years hold.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and as far as, this goes here, I think we can close it out now with a couple of questions, a couple of rapid fire rounds. And let's start it off if you're ready.
Cool.
Cool. Alrighty. First question. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book is this. I'm not a huge reader. I should be. My mom's a huge reader, but Nantucket Ghost Stories.
Nantucket Ghost Stories. Check them out.
Yeah.
Check them out. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Next question. Most influential role model. Who would that be?
I would say my mom. Yeah, definitely my mom. Just with
Nice.
everything that her upbringing, her life, and joining her life and all that stuff and what we've accomplished, I would say her.
I love that. I love that. Next question. What would you say is the most stressful part about being a student day in and day out?
Time management, I think I'm very good at it. I'm very quick with certain things. But I tend to I think putting a lot on your plate is the most stressful part because I have way too much on my plate, but I love it. I need to add more to my plate, but I'm like, I really shouldn't. Yeah.
I love it. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Terrible, terrible character trait, character
Yeah.
flaw. All right, next question. Who is a person that you've studied with that was your favorite person to study with?
Ooh. I don't study with people. I study alone typically.
Hmm.
Um, I'm the type of person I actually talk to myself when I study, and I have to be completely alone in a room. And I basically like teach fake lessons to help me memorize stuff. So
So
probably won't
yourself.
be best. Yeah, myself. Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. All right, next question. What would you say the most meaningful way for students to help each other is?
I would say one, checking in. I think if you see that they're potentially struggling a little, like if somebody's like, oh, like I have a huge exam or I have like a paper due, like I don't know if I'm having enough time. Be like, oh well, hey, like I have some stuff to do too. Like we'll go to the library and we can just like knock it out, get it done. I
Hmm.
think just those small things, I think for me, when I do stuff that's productive like that, it can make my whole week better. I feel like a better student, more productive and more focused on future stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Checking in is huge. Huge,
Yeah.
huge, huge. Um, Next question. What do you think the purpose of undergraduate studies are?
Figuring yourself out. Yeah. I think it allows you, like I said, with my experience, figure out what my niche is. A lot of people think my major is going to be me doing field work, but I had the opportunity to do and try other classes that have moved me away from that and more interested in the, I guess, business analytical side of it. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Big question. What's your biggest hope to accomplish during your time on Earth?
making a very big, strong, impactful difference on the world. Not just like I know I'm applying for 9 to 5 jobs, but ideally I want to do more than that, potentially start my own business or a nonprofit, something on the side where I'm making impactful decisions for others for the better. And it doesn't even have to be in the environment. Like, really love the Native Americans when I was there in high school, like something on the lines of that, anything. Yeah.
I love that. Absolutely. Okay. What is your top piece of advice for those who are early in their educational journey?
Throw yourself at any opportunity. That's what I've been doing. It's been working. And networking is huge. I think um, you don't have to know a lot of people, but it's pretty easy to network if you got some people skills.
I love that. I love that. Well, you're a go-getter and you've got the people skills and you have been throwing yourself at every opportunity. And it's going to be awesome to see what you continue to do. It's been so great learning from you. And I think so many people are going to benefit from this. So, Grace, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people follow you and keep up with you throughout the years?
Where? LinkedIn.
Get her on LinkedIn. Grace Rao. Look her up. Go
Yep.
get her. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.